and welcome back to Nadya's Identity Files. I still have with me, yay, Liza and Ted. We're going to continue talking about all things supernatural and dream world. So I want to dig in a little bit more into identity. And I've always been super fascinated by the supernatural realm. In fact, when I was a little girl, I made a Ouija board on a piece of notebook paper, and I went into my closet, and I was like, nothing is going to happen. But I had some supernatural experiences before, including having my leg tugged by some seemingly nobody that was there, but obviously something was there. Having some feeling on my shoulder, smelling tobacco when there was no tobacco around. Lots of strange experiences very, very early on in childhood. So I've always wondered, like, the identities of these entities. And I'd like to think about quite often the intersection of science and spirituality, and I sometimes wonder if there's like a relationship between physics and other dimensions and the spiritual world. So what are your thoughts? I know I'm going on like a little tangent here because it just interests me so much about the identities of these entities. Is it like, I know it rhymes, are they real? I mean, can you just kind of expand on what I'm talking about here? Does that sound crazy?
Yeah, we talked about several different types of entities in our book, Lifting the Veil of Illusion. And they have different characteristics based on what they love in their heart, and they have different effects on you. So quite often, if you're sensitive, you can be feeling or sensing their presence. In some cases, you might be seeing them. Like Liza sees them more often. I feel them more often. I'm kind of like a Geiger counter. I know right away just by feeling that there's something there. But why don't you talk about a few of the actual
It's very interesting
groupings?
because my experiences when I was a little girl were kind of close to yours. Since I was very little, I could see entities, and of course as a child you don't understand, you just get scared, and I remember going to my parents saying, there is something right there in the closet, and say, no, just go to sleep, just go. These things don't exist. Let me tell you, they are real and they do exist. So all my life I was trying to kind of push it back, push it away, and try to believe that they don't exist. But when you see them, when you smell them, when you feel them, you can't deny your feelings. So when I started investigating that, for sure, they do exist, they're very real, and they are as real as we are here. So identities of these entities are similar to identities of all the people, because it's basically people that were in the world and taking all their habits and inclination and loves that are in their heart into the spiritual world. So nothing is changing about them. So if they liked smoking while they were alive, they would be smoking on the other side. Of course, in a different way, but the smell and the manifestation of it is very similar.
She's saying the spirits that we encounter all had physical bodies at one time, were living on the earth, and then they left when they died. They left those bodies, and some of them are earthbound spirits. So they're not supposed to be here, but they're just stuck here because they're afraid to step into the heavens, into the spiritual realm. We encounter a lot of these earthbound spirits, and they need help. In some cases, they feel guilty, like they did something wrong, and as a result, they're going to get punished because of false beliefs. They don't step into this wonderful spiritual place where they're supposed to be. And as a result, they feel very lonely. And if they end up attaching to a physical person, that person will start to feel the loneliness. They'll start to feel a heaviness. They'll start to feel very tired, because it's almost like, they're draining your energy, because now it's two spirits living on one body rather than just one. And so one of our jobs is to help those spirits to cross over. Often Liza has to have a little conversation with them to let them know it's okay. And there are angels on the other side that are waiting for them and helping them, encouraging them to come through.
Wow, that's intense.
Also, I'm remembering very interesting client that we had. A young guy, he was in his early 20s, and he came to us because he was having physical, actually, symptoms. In 20, he developed incontinence, he developed arthritis, he thought he was having heart attack. He actually went to the hospital a few times and they couldn't find anything. And when he came to us, he said, I don't know what to do. I've been going to the doctors. I don't feel well. And he was even walking as an old man.
He was starting to worry that he might be crazy because
Yeah.
they couldn't find anything physically, but yet he felt all these symptoms and they were very real to him.
Right. Right. So they were probably writing him off as a hypochondriac and
Yeah.
Well, they were actually trying to help him physically. They were doing all the EKG, all the CT
Right.
scans, everything was coming out normal. So
Right.
doctors could not find anything. But lo and behold, when we started working, we realized it was his grandmother who loved him so much, who stayed behind. They had incredible connection.
Close
She didn't want to
relationship.
transition, so they had a very close relationships. And all the symptoms that she had before she passed, which were part of her identity, now he was kind of adapting, and they became part of his identity for this little while.
Right.
And it was because her spirit was with him, he now started to have the symptoms that she had. And so they were real symptoms, and they were her symptoms, though. And so what we had to do was help them to know that it was okay for the grandmother to cross over, that he was going to be okay. In fact, he would be healthier if she wasn't
Right.
there, because that's not normal for her to be there. And when we released that spirit, his symptoms were removed, and he felt healthy again.
He was
Wow.
young again.
Wow.
He felt
Yeah.
like himself again.
in some aspects, maybe was he sad by this separation though, as it felt like kind of like a permanent cutoff then from his grandmother in some aspects?
Not at all. This is one of the things we have a misunderstanding. We think that if someone's in a spirit and they've passed away, that they're far from us and that we'll never see them again. And the truth is, this is the great thing about dreams, is in your dreams you can encounter your loved ones and your relatives again. The dream world is right next to the spiritual world, and when you go into those dreams, that's when there's those times where they will step into your dreams and they'll communicate with you. And once he had this understanding, there was no reason to be sad. In fact, he was so happy to know that his grandmother now was in her rightful place where she needed to be
Wow.
and living an incredible life. This is something else we don't understand when spirits, when we leave these bodies. We have incredible lives that we go on to live.
Right, right. And the fact is that they didn't have to separate forever. Now, when she transitioned to where she was supposed to be, now the healthy interaction could happen.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
See, you still need to be bound by the laws of the universe. Everything is created for a reason, but you don't have to cut them off. They don't have to cut you off. See, in this case, it was not a malicious spirit.
Right.
It was a loving grandmother who was trying to stay next to the beautiful, beautiful boy that she loved
And
so much.
inadvertently impacting him physically
Yes.
in that process.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard there is a difference between a poltergeist and a typical spirit. And I've heard that poltergeists are not spirits in the general sense, like the ghost of the grandmother that we just talked about, but more so our own angry energy bottled up and then manifested in spirit form while we're awake. Now, I've read other things saying that they're just angry spirits, so it goes back and forth. Is there a difference?
What they are is really they're people that were evil in the world. When they leave these physical bodies, they're now evil in the spiritual. And they want to do people harm, just like they did when they were in the physical. And so these are spirits that now come to actually physically try to harm us and attack us. And these are the things that you will feel, when you're under attack sometimes. And a lot of times we can mistake that for being our own emotions. And this is one of the big things that we work with, is helping people to understand the difference between this is not yours and when it is yours. In fact, we had an interesting case of a guy who was he would have to suppress this anger, and he kept saying, I was a bad guy. And in a previous life, he kept saying, I was a bad guy, and I have all this anger, and I've got to hold it down. And what I saw when I was working with him, there was a spirit with him. And I said to Liza, there's a spirit with him. And sure enough, she looked, right? And you saw also there was a spirit with him that had to be removed.
Wow.
Well, we call these poltergeist manifestations just supernatural manifestations, because sometimes, yes, your energy gets bottled up and explodes, and you can affect certain things in your surroundings. It happens to me many times. Sometimes I go into the elevator and all the lights start kind of flashing, and the lights in our apartment. It does happen when your supernatural field is strong. So it does happen, but should we look for a difference? Really not. We just need to be aware of the reality of the supernatural and the world that is not tangible. When we learn and believe that it's real, we start to understand the way it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So interesting. I love it. Thank you so much. But when we come right back, it's time for me to get a little transparent with some of my dream experiences. Specifically, I'll share one that sticks out to me that I had, I guess, maybe a week or so ago, and Liza and Ted will conduct a dream consult on me. So we'll be right back for that. Stick around.